Right, Christine, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. How you doing?
Hi, Adam. It's so great to be with you. And what a fabulous day.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's great to connect, and it's a really great day today on your side. It's great where I am, and it's great to connect. And I thought I'd introduce you because you help businesses and people in coaching and helping them in their business. And you're also involved in like a lot of other projects, and you've authored multiple books as well. Like, do you want to kind of go into like the book you mentioned before we start recording?
Sure, Adam. So I am working on releasing a pandemic edition of my book, Life Beyond #Me Too. And it's the subtitles Creating a Safer World for Our Mothers, Daughters, Sisters, and Friends. And yeah, I was really excited to get an endorsement from Jack Canfield, the Chicken Soup for the Soul coach, who I met personally, and also Marshall Goldsmith, who is a top executive coach, really pretty much around the world, endorsing the book. But the pandemic kind of sent us in the wrong direction when it came to safety and equity for women and girls. And so I thought, let's record this, let's update the book, and then, make it more suitable for a wider audience. So I'm working on getting my release team together for that. I'd love listeners who care about this issue to connect with me if they want to be a part of the social media launch, because it's time to get the message out a little bit broader so we can work on having a better world.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think there's a lot of growth to be taken from the book that you've written and the topics that you touch base on. And you also mentioned as well, like if you were like kind of books that you've been involved in doing as well with like some great people.
Yeah, I had the privilege of getting an invitation to participate with Jim Britt. He's the coach in Washington, in the United States. That Jim Britt and Jim Rohn coached Tony Robbins when he was just getting started, and Jim invited me to be a part of a series with him, and also Kevin Harrington. He's the Shark Tank guy. Kevin, very smart businessman. So I got to contribute a chapter to their book, Cracking the Rich Code. So that was really fun to do. My chapter is called 16 Secrets to True Riches. And so there's a little bit of an autobiographical spin on it, along with, just things that business people need to know. And maybe you're an aspiring entrepreneur, things that could help you along the journey. So that was one. And then coming out really soon, I got the invitation to partner with Sean Douglas. He was the founder of Life Transformation Radio podcast, which is a highly ranked podcast. And he had me on when at the first launch of Life Beyond Me Too. And Sean put together a book called From No Worth to Self-Worth. So that is actually a book on just helping people with developing self-esteem. And so it's also a compilation of many different authors contributing. And I did a chapter, Adam, on that book called Self-Esteem for Leaders. And it's really about, we've got to have our self-esteem figured out if we're leading other people. Everybody's heard of, or maybe a lot of people have had that boss who, they're trying to work out their issues and you happen to have to work for them, right? So when they're really solid in who they are, they can really be a great servant leader. So the book is coming out pretty soon. Yeah, From No Worth to Self-Worth.
That's awesome. And I think like, you mentioned, self-esteem and, like leadership. It's so important to, as a leader, to be able to know yourself and, like you said, that self-esteem, that confidence, and how you see yourself. Like I suppose if you're in a leadership position, you don't see yourself in a good light, that it's probably going to leak into your business and your work, your relationship with other people. So, like you said, it's really, really important topic. And I think like with COVID, I think like a lot of people, have things have come up for people, if that makes sense. People are having, people have been working on themselves, they're more aware.
Yeah, Adam, there's a book that uh, was done by Dr. Timothy Clark called The Four Stages of Psychological Safety that I got to read during COVID. And it really helped me see that pretty much everything I'm doing ties together. And it's about helping develop more psychological safety in the world. And that's understanding, when you're working with people, that there's inclusion, there's diversity, there's a sense that you belong there. So when a boss has self-esteem, they're better able to create that kind of culture. And also, the second stage is learning safety. Well, if the boss doesn't have strong self-esteem, chances are, he had that teacher or somebody who made him feel, who he felt bad when he was a kid, and it's not safe to learn. So you got to be perfect. And so people are then spending their time posturing instead of being able to make mistakes and being real together and as a team moving forward. The third step is contributor safety. And if you didn't have psychological safety growing up and you don't know what it's like to feel like your voice counts and you can add value, how are you going to offer that to your team? And then the top, the fourth stage is challenger safety. And, we're living in a really crazy times right now, and everybody's ideas are needed in order to really innovate and respond. Well, challenger safety is that ability to be able to challenge the status quo without fear of losing your job, right, or negative repercussions. And if a guy doesn't, a woman leader, whoever it is, doesn't have self-esteem, a strong self-esteem, then when people challenge, they feel threatened. Those are the ones who aren't going to provide that environment for their team, that culture for their team that's going to let the best ideas flow in. So it's really important right now to make sure, you've got a solid self-esteem. And, the psychological safety also ties in with kind of the Me Too book about life beyond Me Too. A lot of people pit women against men, and I don't think that's any solution, because we got a global issue where a third of females are going to be victims of violence from a partner or from a non-partner in their life. And, just imagine if she was on the other foot and a third of men were going to be victims of violence. I think there might be a war happening. So they'd be like, no thanks, I'm not going to be a victim. But we all need to come together, because we all come together when there's a war. We all come together, we come together when there's a pandemic and a war against a disease we can't see. And the same thing we need to do is to create that psychological safety in our culture so that we don't have Me Too stories happening all the time. I was reading in the US, the harassment of restaurant workers is up 25% in 2021. So, it's like we had this whole Me Too thing going around the world, but it doesn't seem to be changing stuff. So psychological safety is a great thing to learn about and figure out, hey, is this a way that, how am I adding to this, or how am I creating an issue for other people?
Mm. Yeah, I think it's a really, really important topic. And I think, like you said, with COVID, people, I think, there's that increase of tension and anxiety. And you talk about like the people in restaurants and hospitality, being treated a certain way by people because probably people, they're they might feel more tension in their lives, and they're not okay in themselves, and then that just kind of spreads, doesn't it? And I think like in business, and that like psychological security is so important. And like you mentioned, like growing up, if people have had certain upbringings or had certain experiences, whether that's growing up or in a workplace, that is going to then, affect how people feel about themselves, their belief system, how they go into other situations. Um, and I think, like you said, if someone's in a certain position and they haven't got that confidence in themselves to probably vocalize something or to stand on their own 2 feet, they they might get kind of overwalked on by other people. And the business world is very, very competitive, and you kind of need to kind of hold your own, don't you? I suppose.
Well, it's competitive and it's collaborative. And if we're not collaborating effectively, then as a team, our ability to keep our promises becomes jeopardized, right? And so we really need to have in teams, in businesses, and we need to recognize, I mean, unless you're a solopreneur, and even solopreneurs have teams, right? Because they do contract work with people. When we're working in a team, we want communication to flow, and we want people to really have each other's back. We want that sense that we're in this together to deliver on a promise. And so if there's a lot of infighting and competition in the team, it's time to have some team conversations, right? And time to get some coaching. Like, I'm working with teams like that where there's just not clear communication among team members. Maybe they don't know who's on their team very well. They haven't had those constitutive conversations that bring a team together, because you can have a bunch of people working together, and if they haven't had the right conversations, then the boss may say do this, and somebody may even say sure, I'll do it, and 2 weeks later it's not done, right? So that's not teamwork. So it's really important to have the right attitude, that culture of safety. In fact, Project Aristotle, Google did a study, and they found that psychological safety is the gateway characteristic of innovative and effective teams. So, I mean, everything else depends on that. So you got to have it. Yeah, you're right, Adam.
Yeah, no, it's really important, and like what you said with like communication and businesses, I think not just in business but in relationships, like relationships with people, that listening, that communication is where I think a lot of people make mistakes and slip up. And like you said, if you want something to get done, it has to be that effective communication there, and probably that respect, for the boss, for the organization, and everything else. It's all kind of like a domino effect. And I spoke to somebody who's a coach as well, and she said, you know, in some corporations are almost like these divides, and some people don't even know, because she said that she went to a business looking for somebody, and she said, "Is so and so there?" And there was like no, there's no one here of that name. And then she went to the other office and found the person, and then that person had been there for like 10 or 15 years. And some people, there's like this kind of split off, if that makes sense, probably in some corporate environment, or not just corporate, but probably businesses as well. Have you found that? Have you come across that?
Yeah, some companies, the bigger you get, the harder it is to have that real sense of teamwork and safety, and the easier it is for there to be silos like that. So it takes intentionality really from day one. If you're a startup right now and you're trying to start up a new business, yes, you want to grow a great team. Yes, you want to deliver your products, but man, if you are not also focusing on your culture from day one, that's going to come back and bite you, right? Just like that story of that coach, right?
Mm.
People will see that underneath it all, there's a kind of chaos. And so culture has to be intentional, and it's where you're really clear as a founder, where you're clear as a team. What's our mission? What's our vision? What's our values? Are we all aligned on this? And then, it's not something that's up on the wall in the office. It's something that you're living and breathing every day in your job.
Mm. And like for what you do in your work, like it must be rewarding, when you see businesses change and people develop, and helping people to kind of reach their aims or their goals and what they're doing.
It is. It's so fun. I had a client that just bought a business about a year ago. And, this is somebody that hadn't been a business owner before. So transitioning in and being able to work with the team and be able to kind of establish a new vision for the company and have all these conversations that I was talking about, really gain the confidence as a leader that, hey, we're going to do this. And, to see him taking off is so much fun. It's really rewarding.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like kind of what kind of got you into this kind of field, like into coaching and things, like if you always kind of wanted to do like this kind of like role, and did you think you'd be
Yeah,
doing
great
this?
question. Actually, no, I think, if you think about it, I've been mentoring and advising and helping people all my life. But with coaching, what happened was I hired a coach. I was in my own transition and I wanted to come out on top. I wanted to come out winning. And it was, kind of a challenging transition. So I worked with the coach, and what I noticed about the coach was she had a different way of being. She had a different way of asking questions, of really getting to the heart of things. And I wanted to have that. I wanted to be like that. So I studied coaching because I wanted to really be able to come alongside somebody and help them address whatever challenge or obstacle they're facing in such a way that, they could be the hero of their story and accelerate their growth and accomplish what it is they want to accomplish. So that's why I studied coaching. I studied at Coach U, and corporate Coach U was probably the oldest coaching institution in the US, founded by Thomas Leonard, who was like the godfather of coaching and one of the founders of the International Coaching Federation. But I got a really nice background on coaching best practices. And, anybody can hang up a shingle, put up a website, and call themselves a coach. I would advise people to do their due diligence and figure out whether or not the person actually has the skill set to be able to accelerate the transformation that they want to see happen. But I got into it because I love that way of being, and I wanted to be that way too.
I love that, and I think there's so much growth there that you experienced. And so if there's any noise, it's because it's hailing right now. I don't know if you can hear
Oh my gosh.
that. Don't know if you can hear that on the microphone, but yeah, I think there's so much growth to be to take from that experience, and to see what the other person is doing in their coaching, and want to do that yourself and to give back and make a difference to other people is really transformational. And I think, like you said, a lot of people sometimes just say that they're a coach and they just kind of put something out there. There has to be really some kind of catalyst or some deep reason why you kind of want to do it to kind of, I think, take it seriously. So I think some people just think, oh, I can be a coach and coach them on X, Y, Z. And, it's a very kind of deep process.
Yeah, there's that saying that those who can do, those who can't teach. And there's you could translate into those who can't coach, but actually there's real training and best practices, and there's a real skill set to really be able to partner with somebody and accelerate that transformation. So one of the things I do to make my clients comfortable working with me is I offer them a guarantee on the return on investment. If they don't get a return on investment that exceeds what they invest, I just refund the money. I just won't charge them because, you have to know that what you're doing is going to make a difference. And if, that's one way to, give some assurance. And I can tell you, Adam, in my entire 5 years of being in business, going on 6, I've never had to refund $1. Everybody gets a positive return.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I think it's that assurance, isn't it? And, giving them that sense, that trust in you and what you're doing. I think is massive. And I think that's something that I think about relationships and going into that is that trust, isn't it? They're trusting you, you're trusting them, and showing up. It's like a two-way thing.
Yeah, Adam, and trust is something that has to be earned, right? So, we do our due diligence, we do our research, and we try to figure out, hey, do you have the competence to carry out the promise that you're making? But there's also more than competence, and especially like trust in teams, like if you're working with coworkers or even in families, there's, do you have the intention of fulfilling your promise? Can I believe that you're going to do what you say you're going to do? Do you have integrity? Are you this person who does what they say they're going to do? Do you have a commitment to me? Are you committed to my best interest? We even, when we're doing podcasts or when we're doing a business meeting, knowing that the person who we're working with is somebody who they're in it for your best interest, not just their own, right? So trust has to be developed, and it can break down in a lot of different ways. I coach people and say, okay, let's take a look at what's happening that's leading to the mistrust, and let's address, these issues. Is it an issue of not believing somebody's promises because they've failed to keep their promises? Is an issue of not having clarity among the parties about what the promise is? And so somebody thinks they're fulfilling the promise, but you haven't really identified what conditions of satisfaction there are around that, and whether or not, what fulfillment really looks like. Or is there just the sense that that person doesn't really care? And, so there's a lot of things to kind of hash out, but we get to the bottom of it and reestablish trusting relationships. Mm-hmm.
I think that's really important as well. And I think it's like there's a lot of kind of inner work and self work that people have to do, don't they? Like, not just like in life, but like business. And like you said, it can be an accountability, being accountable, and asking yourself those questions. It's kind of really, if there's a problem going on, probably in the business, it might be like you said, the person themselves, and they're not asking themselves the right questions or looking at it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and Murphy's law, right? If it can go wrong, it will go wrong. So I mean, it's nice to it's really smart to take the time and evaluate those things up front. In an economic downturn, or in uncertainty, especially right now for business owners, when they're looking at, okay, in the United States, the price of building materials is through the roof. I don't know if that's a global supply problem, but in the US, it's terrible. And same thing in the floral industry. I recently heard that they're really struggling with supplies, and people who go on Pinterest, the brides who go on Pinterest, they finally get to have a wedding, right? They finally get to have 100 people together in the same place. And so all of the 2020 weddings got rescheduled, and they go on and they pick out what they want. And a florist can't guarantee they're going to be able to get the flowers that are in that picture. And so it's kind of a crazy time to be in business. And so being committed to a standard and being able to share honestly with your clients, here's what we're committed to, here's what we can do. And then to be a business owner and say, okay, given the conditions that are so crazy right now in business, how do I make trustworthy promises, and how do I fulfill them? And what is it my customers really need? Because the needs are changing too. So you got to be evaluating, you got to be doing scenario planning, multiple scenario planning, to figure out what are my options depending on what's going to happen with the world, because nobody knows.
Yeah, that's it. There's that uncertainty, isn't there? And there's so many different things happening in so many areas of like life and business, and the way that people are buying has changed, the way that people thinking has changed, and there's so many, how can I put it, different lenses of how people are kind of working now. And it's like you got to kind of be so adaptable, I suppose, as well. Like, being in business or being a leader, being able to adapt and pivot and shift and it's take that accountability and show up. It's all it's all these different things. So you can see why it's very difficult to be in that position, but as long as I think you're working on yourself and you're kind of seeing what's going on, if that makes sense, or having a coach to help you, because I think sometimes people, we have blind spots sometimes, so people in those positions need a coach like yourself to help them, to address certain things they might not be addressing or seeing.
It's so true. We all have blind spots. And it really does help to have outside perspective, to have people asking you questions that you wouldn't think about. It makes a big difference.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like, do you have any like role models or mentors, like growing up or like now?
Well, my mentor coach that I had through the International Coaching Federation has become a friend and is a really wonderful person, Teresa McKenna. And Jack Canfield is a role model and a mentor, someone who I've had the privilege to meet with and mastermind with a little bit. And I love his book, The Success Principles. So there you go, Jack. Here's a little plug for you. The Success Principles book is, I would say, a great self-coaching tool. And I've worked my way through it 2 times already. I'm actually training to be a Canfield certified trainer, so I can use all his stuff in my coaching. It's really good.
That's awesome.
So those are some. And, as far as women mentors, my mom was an author, an internationally published author and speaker and
Wow.
trainer. And so she was a big role model for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What amazing people to choose. I think, like, as well, to have your mom as well, like, and to achieve that position and to do that is amazing. And I think, like, it's important to have mentors and role models, to kind of aspire to and to, take things from inspiration. And
Yeah. Another one is Sally Helgeson. She co-authored the book How Women Rise with Marshall Goldsmith. And that's a great, man, for any listener who's female that wants to have, career growth, that's a really great resource. I highly recommend it. And I appreciate her work. She's super.
That's awesome. And like, do you have? I know you just based on some books. Do you have any favorite books at all? Maybe some ones you probably mentioned.
Well, let's see. Probably the one I've read the most is the Bible, which is kind of shocking, but there's some really great human interest stories in there. And what I like about the stories, there's just fun stories. What I like about them is how human everybody is. They're just regular people trying to live their life. And then all of a sudden the divine comes along and says, let's do it my way and let's see what happens. And what happens is so amazing and transformational. I think Jesus was like an incredible coach.
Yeah.
And even, Old Testament stories. So I really like those. There's a series out now. I think it's called The Chosen. That's kind of taken off and gone viral. But I really like that. Other books, on my desk right now, I have a book called Dance First, Think Later by Catherine and Ross Petrus. It's just a little gift book, and it has 618 rules to live by. And I like to look at books like that. Mastery. Trying to remember the name of the author.
Robert Greene.
But yeah, that one I really like. There's a book called The Kaizen Way that I like. It's about chunking down things into small steps So instead of like trying to have this huge, monstrous change all at once, you really break it down to it, the very smallest step you can take, and you do that. So, when, and it works whether you're gardening or it works on, whether whatever you're trying to develop, as a coach, what's your next thing you want to study? Or as a business person, what's your next goal? And instead of it being, I have to save the world right now, it could be, my next step is writing a letter to one organization to see if they'll sponsor shipping for the container full of things that they want to send from the US over to Ghana, which is what I'm working on and I'm the president of a nonprofit called Educational Communities Worldwide. So, if there's a shipper out there who says, yeah, we'll take your container for free, y'all can connect with me. But that's, it's an example. It's like, do the next thing, right? Do the next small thing. I love that book.
That's awesome.
Yeah, those are fun. So I tend to read little self-help books probably more than anything.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I think they're really great books. And like, I think I've got the mini version of Mastery. It's like a pocket-sized Mastery one, but then there's like the bigger one. But there, I think like you can learn so much from books, and I think like you can really apply a lot from books to your life, and I think like you mentioned like a really key thing that I'm kind of learning is kind of doing like one thing, like you said, pick something. You don't have to be saving the world. Just kind of pick something at a time. For me, I can pick like 20 things to try and do at once, and I'm learning to try and just say, okay, let's just do this one thing.
Yeah, that's something that I think we all can learn, because, but it's important to do something, right? So if you're stuck and you're not doing anything because you're stuck, that's okay. It's a great place to be because it's where you are right now, right? But when you're stuck, then it's about, okay, let me just use this opportunity to sit down and write down a list of 30 things I want to do, 30 things I want to have, and 30 things I want to be. And once you got your 90 right there, what's the first one you want to get started on? And then all of a sudden you don't have to be stuck anymore. So that's wherever we are, we don't have to do it all at once. We can just take the next step.
Yeah, I love that. And that's such a great concept. And I think like it's very, very powerful, isn't it? Sitting down and writing stuff down on paper, like pen and paper, and just it's like there's like an energy that kind of comes from it. Once you start kind of doing it, other things start popping into your head, and you're like, okay, well, it's maybe this, maybe this.
Yeah, imagine, right? What's on your list? So, you start envisioning it too. Like, so you write it down, and then while you're writing it, you're thinking about it. Like, oh, I could be in that place. Well, then you get to build this bridge from where you are to that place where it's happening. And it just starts one, like, okay, seems impossible now, but what's the first step? Yeah.
That's it. And when you think about it, that's probably how like a lot of these successful businesses started, or how people created something. They probably sat down, jotted down the ideas on paper, and then got to work.
Yeah, the Life Beyond Me Too book happened that way. I was sitting having a glass of wine with the girlfriend at the Heathman Hotel in Kirkland, Washington, which is a great place to go have local Washington state wine, right? So we're just visiting and just chatting up, and Me Too kept, going on and on and on. You're like, wow, 6 months, 8 months, so much time's gone by and this is still in the news. What's going on? I said, I got to write a book. And she said, you do have to write a book. And she said, what's the title? So I said, what's next? And she said, what do you mean? I said, there's got to be something beyond this. I mean, I think we're starting something here. I think this is a movement that could have the potential to change the world. And I think we need to be aware that there's some possibilities here. And as a coach, I would love to ask questions, share some stories, and help people make this world change and make it better. Well, it started with that conversation and then sitting down and just taking a pen and actually writing it down. Okay, if I did write a book, what would be in it? Well, here's the table of contents, let me just, take a look at that. And then, okay, if I was going to use this table of contents, then what would I need to, to fill it out? Well, what kind of research would I have to do? And step by step, the provision comes. I didn't think about having a finished book. I thought about when you have ideas to share or you have something to contribute, what would that look like if you brought that thing into the world? What a difference could you make with that thing you have to contribute? And how would you just get started?
Mm. I love that. I think it's so important, like you said, just by asking yourself those questions and piecing those stages together, just writing it down and asking yourself, what do I need? Where do I need to go? And, there's that process, isn't there, to, writing a book, creating a book. There's that process with a lot of things, kind of starting out, it's those kind of, it's like building a house, isn't it? In some sense, there's foundations of kind of like planting the seed and then putting it into what, what's the right word? Into like, being, like materialize it,
You got to plant it.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, you
materialize it.
got to take that seed and plant it. If you have an idea and you let it go, what's it going to turn into? But if you have an idea and you think about it, you write it down, you are 70% more likely to achieve a goal if you write it down and if you tell somebody. So I have a free program called WINS. It's on Facebook. It's a group. And it's about accountability. It's helping people to be accountable for their goals. And it's just you share what your goals are. You write them down every week, share them either with me by email or you share them with the whole group. And then you share what your wins were. And just having the ability to, you don't have to join my group, but you can if you want to, just reach out to me. But if you do the step of writing down your goals, you're significantly more likely to attain them. And if you take the step of being accountable to someone for them, you're even more significantly more likely to attain them. So put it out there in the world, share with people what the vision is. And then you're going to find out there's those people who go, yeah, you got to do that. And then there's people who go, oh my God, you're never going to do that. You're such a loser. So we want to go towards the yeah people and go away from the you're a loser people, because we just don't want to believe that, because that thing you need to do is really important. And it's maybe why you're here. It could be your purpose, right? Because we're here to contribute something. So find the yes people and get rid of the no people. Maybe you're related to them and you can't completely get rid of them, but you can put a boundary around what's going to impact you. So you don't let them drag you down. You don't let anybody's no be your no, right? You have your own yes or no, and their yes or no is not yours. So you got to let them go and stick with the people who are your yes people.
It's really powerful, and I really agree with you. And I think like it's so important, even if, like you said, you have people who are close to you, who maybe there's no people, there are still people out there you can find, on networking. I certainly have, and through networking, social media, finding people who are doing similar things to you, and they're going to support you in what you're doing. Or they might not be even doing the same things that you're doing, but they may, support you in your journey. And I think that's so important, to have the right people around you in, whether that's physically or, by, like this. And I think like a lot of the time the know people might be insecure themselves. They might kind of be wanting to do what you're doing, but they don't believe in themselves and they project their bullshit onto you, if that makes sense. And then it just kind of goes on. But it's, like you said, there are people out there who will support you in what you're doing. And I really like your accountability, that email kind of that system of picking something and sharing that. And I think when you share that to somebody and they appreciate it and they value it, it makes you probably want to do something else and believe in yourself to do something else as well. So it creates that momentum.
That's right. Yeah, if you want to go find out about the WINS group, you can go on coachchristinerose.com and just look under groups. And that's, you'll get an invite to the free WINS group if you choose. But,
Yeah.
if you've got family or friends, or, even if you just have, okay, let's go online and let's ask my Facebook community or my Insta community, who do I have who can support me on this goal? I'm going to put it out there, right? That will make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. And, like, where can people find you on, like, social media, your website, that kind of thing? Where can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn at Coach Christine Rose. You can find me on Facebook at Christine T. Rose. And I'm on Instagram too, on Coach Christine Rose. I don't post very often. Some people are like, I don't have a lot of time, so I try to do what I can do. Definitely can find me on my website at coachchristinerose.com. And, that's a place where I blog. I also have information for business owners. Man, if you're a business owner and you're 50 plus and you're within 10 years of transitioning out, I've got a great free resource for you there called the Value Builder that will help you to get a picture of what are the drivers that will increase the value of your company before you transition out. Because so many business owners start a business, think they're going to get a couple million for it. And, less than about 30% will get an offer, right? So 70% of business owners are not aware that there are some things that they need to do to lower the risk of loss to potential acquirers. And so that Value Builder assessment, which is free on my website, it could be a really useful tool for you.
That's awesome. And I think, like, it's really great what you're doing. And, it's been an absolute pleasure, like, having a podcast and talking to you. And I wish you all the best in all that you're doing, and, all the best with your book as well. For your book, where can we find the book as well? Find it on Amazon? Like, when's that out?
Well, right now, the first edition, a limited first edition, is on Amazon, Life Beyond Me Too, Christine T. Rose. And it's available in an ebook on Kindle. It's at barnesandnoble.com as well. And the new pandemic edition is going to be coming out within a few months. I don't have a publishing date yet, but as soon as I have one, I'll put it up on my website. You can also find a link directly from my website to, you can read more about the book. You can see Jack Canfield's video with me on my book page on my website, coachchristinerose.com.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. But it's been a pleasure talking to you, Christine. And, I wish you all the best in all that you're doing. I think you're doing great.
Thank you so much, Adam. It's just been my pleasure to speak with you too. And I'm wishing you the best for the podcast. I can't wait to share it with my friends. Thanks for what you're doing too.
Yeah, no, I'm really, really grateful, really appreciate it. And really means a lot. Thank you.
All right.